Hey everybody, it's Shaman Sister Sin, and thank you for being here with us on the littleshaman.com. Today's podcast episode is brought to you by Transrelational Healing, shamanspiritcenter.com, and littleshaman.org. That's me, the Little Shaman. Today, I wanted to talk to you about navigating narcissistic relationships. In order to do this, it is very important to understand that you are in a no win situation from the very beginning. So, I thought we could talk about that on the show. To be very clear, we are not talking about managing relationships with narcissists successfully in the sense that now the narcissist will function like a healthy person in the relationship or the situation, or that now you're going to be able to somehow interact with this person successfully and get what you want using these tips and tricks and magic beans. There is no way to do these things. When we say navigating these relationships, we're talking about gaining an understanding so that you are better able to manage yourself and prioritize your own well being if and when you are forced to interact with a narcissist for some reason. This is important to understand up front because so many people, even those who intellectually understand that there is no way to have a successful relationship with a narcissist or to control this person in any way, are often still ultimately looking for that magic pill, for that trick or tactic that can make the narcissist's pathological problems a non factor in their interactions or relationships with this person, or somehow bypass these things altogether. Well, there's not. The situation is what it is. Pathological narcissism is not a bug in this person's personality, it's a feature. It's not an app running on their operating system. It is their operating system. The way to navigate these interactions then is to accept that and deal with it, not try to find ways to bypass it or make it not true. That would be like trying to use a Windows computer without using Windows to do anything. As soon as the computer comes on, you're using Windows. Incidentally, the confusion that most people feel when faced with the narcissist's quote operating system is similar to what you feel whenever you're used to a Windows machine and then you try to use a Mac, for example, or when you go from Apple to Android. You don't know where anything is. The commands are all totally different. You don't know what the buttons do. Nothing is where it seemed like it should be. It's just totally and completely different from what you're used to. And regarding human operating systems, it's generally not really possible for people to learn to navigate a new one with any real level of success, especially learning, quote unquote, from the outside in, as we are trying to do with narcissists. The best we can do is understand the incompatibility and try to navigate that as best that we can in a way that prioritizes preparing and protecting ourselves. A Mac cannot run a Windows application. Stop trying to get it to do that. So much of the energy that people expend when dealing with narcissists is spent trying to successfully navigate their interactions with these people. For most people, this means being seen in a way that lines up with how you present yourself, being understood when you communicate, and understanding the other person when they communicate. It means that there's an agreed upon reality that all of the people in the situation rely on as a sort of a touchstone or like a home base for these interactions. We are here in this space, in this place, at this time, and these are the things that we know and understand about each other and about the situation. The problem with narcissists is that none of those things are actually true. You are not seen in a way that lines up with how you present yourself. You are not understood when you communicate. You cannot trust how the other person presents themselves, and you cannot understand them when they're trying to communicate. There is no agreed upon reality to use as a touchstone or a home base for your interactions with this person at all. People generally struggle mightily with interactions with narcissists until they understand that. Not that this makes it any easier to navigate. Understanding that a person is not inhabiting the same reality that you are does not make dealing with that person any easier at all. But it does make it so that people can stop running themselves ragged and driving themselves crazy trying to do the impossible. You cannot communicate with someone who's living in a different reality than you are. You cannot have a relationship with them. It's just not possible. And there's no way to get on the same page with them in any way. So once we can actually understand that, the emotional part of navigating relationships with narcissists becomes less hurtful and much less frustrating. The blunt, raw, uncomplicated truth about dealing with narcissists in any capacity is that you're damned if you do. Period. there will be problems. There will be misunderstandings. There will be drama. There will likely be abuse. It is what it is. No matter how educated you are about this, no matter how careful you try to be, no matter how fair, how logical, how reasonable, it doesn't matter. It is what it is. Expecting to deal with narcissists without also dealing with these things is like expecting to roll in the mud and not get dirty. You will be a lot less frustrated and stressed out if you just resign yourself to the fact that you're going to get dirty than if you keep trying to find a way to roll in the mud but stay clean. This doesn't mean that you just give up and tolerate abusive behavior, of course. It means you understand that trying to totally avoid it or prevent it from happening at all when dealing with this person is not possible. If you want to avoid the problems, got to avoid the person. That's it. Trying to find a way to engage with a narcissist without also dealing with these toxic dynamics is just simply not possible. You're only going to exhaust yourself trying to do that. You are damned if you do, and that's it. This is important because most of the stress in these situations is due to constantly trying to prevent problems from occurring in the first place. This is extremely stressful, like walking through a minefield without a map or trying to defuse a really, really complicated bomb while someone is standing behind you just randomly clanging cymbals every few seconds. Whenever you accept that you cannot actually do this, that you cannot actually prevent problems when dealing with narcissists, a huge amount of that stress goes away because you're not trying to do the impossible anymore and feeling devastated when you fail. You're going to fail because it can't be done. You stop spending an enormous amount of mental and emotional energy on a task that is fundamentally unachievable. It's impossible. Instead, you're able to focus on prioritizing and protecting yourself when these things happen, because they will, instead of coming from a place where you are already totally exhausted, stressed out, and upset. That makes dealing with it twice as difficult, and you will have to deal with it. That's the key to dealing with these personalities, to navigating these interactions, understanding that it's always going to be problematic and stressful. That way you can stop spending so much energy trying to have a successful interaction with them and stressing out whenever it doesn't work, because it's not going to work. Not only are narcissistic people in a totally different reality than you are, they're often extremely antagonistic, for example. Many narcissists are very, very contrary. They seem to feel the need to argue every single thing that is said to them, like a toddler just starting to individuate from their caregivers and assert their autonomy. Both toddlers and narcissists are using these contrary oppositional behaviors as a way to create boundaries, test limits, and establish a sense of self that feels distinct from other people. The difference is that while a toddler is on a healthy developmental track that is evolving, a narcissist is an adult stuck in an infantile space unable to mature. This results in the same thing happening over and over and over and over as they attempt to individuate from the influences of other people, but cannot do that because they don't have a stable sense of self and they're now unable to develop one. It's just endless ping-ponging back and forth. Understanding this is how you can keep your equilibrium in these situations, because there is no stable ground to stand on, no reciprocal balanced dynamic that can be achieved. Narcissists do not show up in relationships as adults. Therefore, caretaking of them is often required in order to be around them or interact with them at all. But this is also resented by narcissists hugely. It results in a very stressful push-pull type of situation where no matter what you do, you're wrong. On one hand, narcissists expect you to manage and regulate their emotions, anticipate their needs, fulfill their needs, take responsibility for them, and do all the things that you do for small children when you are the adult caretaker. On the other hand, narcissists view you doing these things as attempt to control and or manipulate them. They resent their dependence on you enormously, and they blame you for that. At the same time, they literally are dependent on you, so if you refuse to do these things, they will punish you. They can't tolerate dependence or independence. They exist in a psychological limbo, desperate to function as an autonomous adult but seeming unable to do so, requiring caretaking but resenting it enormously, expecting to somehow be granted both the agency and power recognized in adults and the deference and the automatic lack of accountability given to children. It's a catch-22 that other people become trapped in, created by a person who is neither an adult nor a child, who wants something it is impossible for anybody to give them. For example, you can't be required to caretake somebody as if they are a child, while at the same time interacting with them as if they're an adult. It's not possible. These are two completely incompatible realities. If someone has the agency and power of an adult, for example, they're held accountable for their actions. But this is what narcissists want. They want the power and the benefits that come with being an adult without any of the responsibility. This is like somebody who wants the ability to spend money and buy whatever they want, but refuses to be held responsible for paying their own bills. It's like a toddler insisting they should be allowed to drive your car. It can't work like that. We can see this dynamic very clearly in the fact that narcissists believe they're entitled to engage in adult relationships and reap the benefits of adult relationships without showing up in these relationships the way that adults are required to show up. They simply believe they should be given what they want, regardless of whether this is fair or not. As an aside, people often ask if, whenever we say these kinds of things, are we saying that narcissists don't deserve love or that they're not, quote, entitled to love? Whether narcissists are entitled to love or not is not up to us to decide. What we're saying here is that if they cannot show up the way that adults show up in adult relationships, then no one is required to simply provide these to them just because they want them. So just to be clear about that. Narcissists do not seem to have developed an adult sense of fairness. Adults understand cause and effect. They understand how their actions come across to other people. Healthy adults understand that, above all, fairness doesn't just mean fair to them, because healthy adults understand that they're not the only person who matters here. They're not the only people who are affected. Example of this would be things like, if I don't show up for work, my boss has a reason to fire me. If I lie to or steal from other people, they have a reason not to trust me. If I mistreat other people, they have a reason not to want me around. It also includes things like, if I'm mean or rude to somebody, they are likely to be mean or rude back. The way I interact with people affects how they perceive me. Behaving in ways that other people don't like will make them dislike me. My actions may impact other people in ways that I cannot see or understand or know or predict. For narcissists, fairness just means they get what they want. There's no deeper understanding of fairness as a social construct, a social contract that needs to account for multiple viewpoints and the greater good of all the people involved. It's a self-centered, infantile perspective, the same one that we see with very small children. For narcissists, if they don't get exactly what they want when they want it, it's unfair. Period. Understanding this makes navigating these situations less stressful because, while it won't make the interaction or the narcissist any more fair, it helps you temper your expectations, create better boundaries, and pick your battles. This might not sound like much, but in these situations it makes a huge difference. Another reason that the relationship will always be problematic is that, as we discussed in the episode of the show entitled Stop Trying to Be the Good Guy, narcissists require a bad guy, somebody to blame their mistakes, shortcomings, and failures on. This is a scapegoat in the traditional sense, but it's also more than that. The bad guy in the narcissist narrative is not just seen as a receptacle to dump blame on. The bad guy in the narcissist narrative is an actively malicious villain. This dynamic is imperative for a narcissist's identity and self-image, which means that no matter what you do or don't do, that's your role in this situation. You cannot overcome, circumvent, or transcend this. In many ways, it's the reason that narcissists have relationships at all. It's one of the main functions that other people fulfill for narcissists. In order to have a tolerable self-image, narcissists need a bad guy. This is really important to understand, as is how fundamental these binary roles are to the relationship overall, because it speaks directly to the intractability of the situation. This toxic, quote, good guy, bad guy dynamic contributes hugely to cycles of abuse, because in order to experience a tolerable self-image and maintain fragile self-esteem, narcissists are driven to continuously demonize and vilify other people so that they can be defined in opposition, creating an environment where healthy interaction becomes impossible. You cannot have a healthy relationship, or any relationship at all, or any communication at all, with someone who legitimately needs to believe that you are the sole cause of literally all of their problems, who believes that you are in fact genuinely attempting to harm, sabotage, or otherwise destroy them. This idea is actually laughable when you think about it. That's just never going to happen. The dishonesty and lack of shared reality here makes any relationship impossible. The narcissist's distorted belief that you are actively trying to harm them creates an environment that completely and totally undermines any possibility of genuine connection or trust. The lack of accountability and responsibility here on the narcissist's part creates a hostile environment where they believe that you are the source of all their issues, failures, and problems. This enables narcissists to evade accountability for their actions through denial and projection, yes, but it also causes them to feel persecuted and sabotaged. That not only destroys any possibility for trust or connection entirely, but it creates resentment and rage, which can lead to retaliation and quote unquote self defense on the narcissist's part. There is an impossibility of mutual understanding here due to a completely one sided perspective. Healthy relationships thrive on mutual respect, understanding, and empathy. However, if one of the people in the relationship is convinced that the other person is legitimately out to get them, any attempts at communication or resolution are futile. You can't even get in the same book, let alone on the same page with this person. The emotional turmoil and constant conflict caused by the narcissist's need for a bad guy ensures constant misunderstandings and accusations, making it impossible to achieve stability, safety, or security. And the narcissist's expectation of malice where none exists not only distorts their perception of reality, but places an impossible burden on the other person to prove their innocence and good intentions in a situation where reality and facts do not matter and or are not considered. The existence of these conditions and dynamics creates a quote unquote relationship that is a battleground, not a place for safety or connection. In relationships with narcissists, you are quite literally at war. The narcissist is constantly on the defensive, constantly looking for and therefore finding threats, and as a result of this, there is often almost constant conflict. It's extremely common for people dealing with narcissists to report horrific arguments, explosions, silent treatments, and more that last for hours or even days over things such as saying good morning or asking what the narcissist wants for dinner. This constant conflict over very small or even non existent things is, in fact, a hallmark of relationships with pathologically narcissistic people. It's simply not possible to have a relationship with someone who legitimately feels persecuted and victimized by you. Stop wasting your time trying to show narcissists that they are wrong about you and just in general. Reality already proves that, and they do not see this. Worse, when you constantly fight back against their perception, you are inadvertently validating and reinforcing it. Don't do that. It's not valid. The reality is, this person already has more than enough evidence and proof that you are not a bad or malicious person. It has not mattered to them at all. It has not made any difference whatsoever. Stop trying to change their distorted beliefs about you and your motives. It only makes them more sure that they're right, and it can make you look even worse now because they perceive you as defensive and or combative. Most importantly, by refusing to engage with such distorted nonsense, you mitigate the power that these things have to affect your emotions or your self concept. This is what actually matters, not changing the deluded opinions of a person who is not in reality anyway. Another facet of this, and another big reason you are damned if you do interact with narcissists in any way, is that as we explored in the episode of the show entitled Stop Trying to Outsmart Narcissists, trying to get something from narcissists puts them in the power position. They now have something they can withhold from you. This includes validation that you are a good person with good intentions. Winning is all that matters to these personalities, and they have no ability to see or care about the damage that these kinds of things can do to other people. Now, if you think about this for a second, you will see how toxic and horrible this really is. How damaging and self destructive it is to keep engaging on this level with this person. Don't bother. Learn to validate yourself so that you can move on from this cruel game of keep away and see this behavior for what it really is. An attempt to control the situation and win the imaginary war this person believes that they are in with you. It has nothing to do with you or who you actually are. Don't give it importance in your head. It's nonsense. Along with needing to maintain the power position, controlling everything, and an almost phobic reaction to losing or being wrong, many narcissists thrive on conflict, on drama, on emotional turbulence, on fireworks. This means that navigating interactions with narcissists has to include an understanding of this reality and expectations that include the possibility for it. If expectations do not include the possibility of this reality, interactions with narcissists are going to be extremely stressful. You will continually be caught off guard by their attempts to provoke drama and conflict and expend precious energy attempting to prevent it, which is impossible. By creating expectations that allow for this reality, you can accept that this is just how this person is, which enables you not to take it personally or be hard on yourself when you can't prevent it, because you can't. This is just how this person is. And accepting that goes a long way toward diffusing the stress and the emotional upset that they are trying to create. As we have explored in many, many episodes of the show, pathologically narcissistic personalities are very much like children in many ways. Part of where they feel a sense of power and importance is from being able to induce people to react to them. The bigger the reaction, the bigger the sense of power and importance and significance. This is why so many narcissists react so strongly to the gray rock method. By not reacting to them, you have removed their only real ability to experience themselves as powerful and significant and important. Creating drama and conflict and chaos is also exciting, even if the emotional response that they're having is something that most people would consider a negative, such as rage or hysteria. It combats boredom, which they experience as oppressive and threatening. It gives them a distraction from their own internal landscape, and it gives them an outlet for feelings that they cannot process or hold or deal with any other way. By understanding that this is a key facet of interactions with this person, you can reduce your personal investment, stay grounded in the moment, and mitigate the shock and dismay, the freezing that can occur as a result of these emotional tornadoes blowing up out of nowhere. Remember that navigating interactions with narcissists is not about controlling or outsmarting the narcissist. It's about preparing, prioritizing, and protecting yourself. Making this shift in framework and in perspective really does make all the difference. The goal of all manipulation is to get people to react without thinking. When we stop and think before we react, we remove the power that manipulators have over us completely. This is not easy, but it works. For those that we have discussed and many other reasons, we have established that you are damned if you do interact with narcissists. The only way to win this stupid, horrible game is not to play it at all. However, if you have to deal with pathologically narcissistic people for some reason, preparing, prioritizing, and protecting yourself is your best bet. As a reminder, these are not strategies that are conducive to ongoing interactions with narcissists or strategies to engineer tolerable relationships with narcissists. There are no strategies that are conducive to that, especially in the long run. Nobody can remain detached and controlled in the face of endless, relentless, non-stop provocation. It's not possible. Preparing yourself means being ready for the challenges that you are going to face when you're dealing with this person. This is done by reminding yourself of all the things that we've discussed here and more. It's done by setting expectations appropriately based on who this person actually is and the things they've actually done, not what you hope or what you think should be. It's done by fortifying yourself against potential attacks, mischaracterizations, accusations, misunderstandings, and more by understanding that these are inevitable and cannot be prevented, so you're not required to do anything beyond exercising reasonable attempts to be clear and be understood. It's done by having a very solid understanding of who you are and who you are not, so that you are not allowing the narcissist's distorted view of you to define or impact how you view yourself. It looks like developing strategies and coping mechanisms for the interaction. This way you don't become overly invested or overwhelmed, such as the gray rock method, deep breathing, distraction techniques, this kind of thing. It looks like a strong commitment to boundaries during the interaction, such as refusing to take the bait or react to provocations, refusing to be derailed from the purpose of the interaction, such as, for example, discussing your child's schooling, and ending the interaction if it becomes abusive or unproductive. Prioritizing yourself means focusing on your own needs and well-being instead of the pathologically narcissistic person. It looks like disengaging from situations that are abusive or unproductive, not wasting mental or emotional energy on things that are pointless, not engaging in interactions that are not necessary, not engaging in conversations that are not based in good faith, not taking things personally, not allowing yourself to be defined by the opinions of other people, especially people who are totally divorced from reality. It looks like seeing your own needs and your own self as equal to that of others, whether they agree with this or not. It looks like holding and enforcing boundaries even when this is difficult or uncomfortable. It looks like committing to yourself and trusting your perceptions, especially over those of people who have proven that they are not seeing you or the situation clearly. It looks like advocating for yourself when necessary and not defending yourself when you don't absolutely need to do so. Protecting yourself means safeguarding yourself from the negative effects of these interactions, of which there can be many. It looks like clearly communicating and enforcing boundaries. In the interaction, when things become abusive or unproductive, refuse to be drawn into pointless nonsense, manage your reactions to your emotions, don't justify, argue, defend, or explain yourself to this person. It looks like not offering more information than you absolutely need to give, not asking for or expecting any validation, empathy, compassion, or understanding because you will not get it. It looks like ignoring provocations and accusations. It looks like separating your self-worth from this person's opinion of you. It looks like not taking sole responsibility for the success or the health of the interaction, for the relationship, for the other person and their stuff, or for anything that is not your own thought, feeling, choice, or action. It looks like keeping things in perspective and not making them bigger or smaller than they actually are. It looks like not taking things personally and separating yourself from the motives of other people. It looks like detaching yourself emotionally from outcomes that you cannot control. Now, the reality is that even if you executed every single one of these things flawlessly, interactions with narcissists are very likely still going to be pretty upsetting and hard. That is the nature of this beast, and there's no strategy or tactic you can use that's going to make it be some other way. It is what it is. These personalities are often very committed to being combative and nasty for all the reasons we've outlined here, and honestly, many more. If you must, and that means must, as in you legitimately have no choice, and not just because you feel pressured or obligated, if you must interact with narcissists, these things can help you come through the interaction with your sanity intact. Because the fact is, unless you absolutely must interact with pathologically narcissistic personalities, you really shouldn't. It's just too toxic, and there's no real way to mitigate the toxicity at all. And truth be told, a gigantic amount of the stress involved with dealing with these personalities disappears just by following that one simple rule. Don't interact with them if you don't absolutely have to. There is no way to make a narcissist or anybody else into something other than what they are. The sooner we can accept that and let go of the idea that we can somehow control the narcissist and make them do what we want, the easier the rest of this becomes. I hope that clears a few things up for you. As always, I look forward to your comments, questions, and suggestions, so please keep those coming. I take appointments online, over the phone, via text, via messenger, via email, and through Skype and Zoom worldwide. So if you are interested in speaking with me one-on-one, you can visit littleshaman.org to do that. I teach workshops, seminars, and clinics throughout the year. So if you'd like to see what we're offering this month, you can visit littleshaman.org to do that. I have a few books out for publication, so if you're interested in picking up a copy, you can do that on littleshaman.org or on amazon.com. And if you are interested in joining our support group with access to exclusive content, weekly support meetings, and more, you can visit littleshaman.org to do that as well. You've been listening to the Meditations and More podcast brought to you by Transrelational Healing, shamanspiritcenter.com, and littleshaman.org. That's me, Little Shaman. May the Great Spirit bless you. Have a beautiful day.
If you've been struggling through dealing with or recovering from an unhealthy relationship with a narcissist or other toxic personality, the Little Shaman has a catalog of over 500 YouTube videos designed to support your journey from discovery to recovery. You can also find additional resources on the Little Shaman website, including tools, courses, workshops, a support group with weekly meetings, and one-on-one appointments with the Little Shaman that are open to clients worldwide. There's even an AI chatbot built and trained exclusively by the Little Shaman using her work that can answer questions 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. For more information, visit littleshaman.org. You can listen to The Little Shaman wherever you find your favorite podcasts.